Good afternoon, everybody, and a very warm welcome to this interactive session with the Union Minister for External Affairs of the Government of India, Dr. S. Jaishankar. As India celebrates 75 years of its independence and PES celebrates 50 years of its fruitful existence, to quote the External Affairs Minister, when we are looking at India at 75, it's not about looking back at what we have done or not done in the past 75 years, but it's about what needs to be done in the next 25. Same thing is the aspiration of the People's Education Society too. I'm waiting with as much bated breath as you all are to have this interactive session going. Let's start the proceedings with a prayer to the Almighty, the invocation by Sharvari and Murthy, a student of 5th semester electrical engineering. Sharvari.
गजाननयुतं गणेश्वरं गजाननयुतं गणेश्वरं श्रीगजाननयुतं गणेश्वरं भजामि सततं सुरेश्वरं श्रीगजाननयुतं गणेश्वरं भजामि सततं सुरेश्वरं श्रीगजाननयुतं गणेश्वरम् अजेन्द्रपूजित विघ्नेश्वरम् अजेन्द्रपूजित विघ्नेश्वरम् अजेन्द्रपूजित विघ्नेश्वरम् अजेन्द्रपूजित विघ्नेश्वरम् गणादिसन्नुत पदपद्मकरम् अजेन्द्रपूजित विघ्नेश्वरम् गणादिसन्नुत पदपद्मकरम् कुञ्जरभञ्जन चतुरतरकरम् कुञ्जरभञ्जन चतुरतरकरं गुरुगुहाग्रजं प्रणवाकारं कुञ्जरभञ्जन चतुरतरकरं गुरुगुहाग्रजं प्रणवाकारं गजाननयुतं गणेश्वरं भजामि सततं सुरेश्वरं श्रीगजाननयुतं गणेश्वरं. Thank you.
We thank Sharvari for that wonderful rendition in the Chakravaka Ragam. We now have the Vice Chancellor of PS University, Dr. J. Suri Prasad, rendering the welcome address.
Namaskara. Good afternoon. I think in our calendars, Shravana Masa is supposed to be very auspicious for a lot of festivals. And today it's very auspicious for PES because there's also another festival or festive mood to have none other than the Union Minister for External Affairs, Dr. Subrahmanyam Jaishankar. The event has its own festivity. Reason is very simple. In less than 24 hours when we opened the portals, over 360 questions poured in from students. That's the kind of enthusiasm and interest that the students have evinced in this particular festivity, and we are so proud Fortunately or unfortunately, we were able to curate only about 30. Trust that the other 320 are going to be forwarded to the minister's office, and I'm sure you're going to get the right kind of answer, though if it is not today, it is going to be given here. This particular session in PES is being streamed live to all our campuses. A lot of them who are not as lucky as the ones who are present here in the hall are also present virtually. Being present virtually in festivities has also become an in thing with the last 2 years that has taught tremendous things for us. Indeed, it's my proud privilege to welcome all the dignitaries on the dais, special invitees, my dear friends, colleagues, the press, media, and the security, including, our police, who've been so very, I would say, helpful in arranging this in such a short time. There have been so many functionaries, even in the office of the Honorable External Minister, who have relentlessly pursued and ensured, whether it is day or night, that they've got things across and ensure that this event is going to happen in PES. I don't want to sound it like a word of thanks, but thank you very much for all the people who have relentlessly worked on this and making this possible at the PES University campus. PES celebrates 50 years. Yes, our country also celebrates 75 years. So these two things coming together and with such a luminary present on our campus is indeed itself a big plus for us at PES. Again, a very warm welcome to all present here on behalf of PES University, the management, staff, the Board of Governors, students, and all present here. A very warm welcome to this interactive session with the Honorable Union Minister for External Affairs, Shri Subrahmanyam Jaishankar ji. I think it's going to be very challenging. There is another small video that's going to be there, which is going to introduce the chief guest of today's deliberations. Just to share some thoughts, a great statesman, an amazing representative for the entire 1.3 plus billion population, showcasing to the world what's the kind of capability that India has. A tremendous hard worker in his own way, ensures that very hard to keep pace with him even while coming from that building to this building, and I'm sure the kind of personality he is, it's a huge honor to have him on PES University. Sir, thank you very much for your presence today. As a small token, we would request you to accept our knowledgeable welcome. Dr. M.R. Doreswamy, Founder, Chancellor of PES Group of Institutions and PES University. Does not need any introduction to this gathering, but the person who started in 1972, a small institution with just about 40 students in a depleted gymkhana, has grown into 20,000 students strong today, spread across 8 different campuses. In itself is a huge achievement. He in fact does mention many a times that he's so fortunate to see the institution grow from 40 students to 20,000 students in 50 years, time span. He's one of the most accessible and busiest chancellors who's available. We are so thankful for him for PES. Sir, thank you very much and appreciate you taking your time off and being present here. Again, a small knowledgeable welcome to you. Quickly, a small introduction on the other dignitaries who are there. Professor Ajoy Kumar, Chief Operating Officer of PES Group of Institutions. Been in the US for close to about 2 decades. Worked in the corporate for quite long enough. Got fed up with the dollars, and then he started thinking of rupees. One of those relentless person who works in the background. In fact, I had to force him to come on the stage today and occupy here. We are so blessed to have him in the team of PES. Thank you very much, Professor Ajoy. Appreciate all these wonderful things. On behalf of the students and PES group of institutions, a very warm welcome to you. Professor K. Sridhar, who's been with PES for close to about over 3 decades. He's grown along with the institution, started as a lecturer, went on to become an assistant, associate, professor, departmental chairperson, and today, a lot of people our students are behind him because he's also the Dean of Placements and the Registrar of PES University. In fact, you can also understand that growing along with an institution is something that's kind of very challenging. As youngsters, there's a good role model for you here today to understand that loyalty makes a huge difference in their own career. Again, thank you very much, Professor KSS. A warm welcome to you to this particular function. I have the Board of Management of PES University, Dr. H.P. Kincha sir. Sir, thank you very much. The former Vice Chancellor and our DOG member. Dr. Sachidanand sir, former Vice Chancellor, Rajiv Gandhi University. Dr. K. Siddhappa, former Vice Chancellor, Bangalore University. I have a lot of people who are also present here. And on behalf of PES, institutions, management, staff, students, a very warm and hearty welcome because I'm also waiting to hear to some of the answers that are going to be given by our guest today because bringing it down from 360 plus to 30 was a pretty challenging task. If any of your questions were not on that list, please do blame me. You're most welcome to do that. But trust me, we will forward all your questions to his ministry. We will tag you along and ensure that you're going to get a reply. Again, a very warm welcome on this evening, and let this all be a memorable one for us. Let the pride of PES be along with us. Let's be proud Indians. Thank you very much.
A PhD from the Florida Atlantic University. In fact, he also started counting dollars and now came back to India to head the PES University in the Electronic City campus as the director, and now is taken over as the Vice Chancellor, Dr. J. Suri Prasad. A very warm welcome to you. Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. The lighting of the traditional lamp is symbolic of moving from darkness to light. We request the dignitaries on the dais to kindly light the lamp and inaugurate this activity. Tribute to Bharata Mata, Pushparchane, Namma Bharata Matege. This is symbolic of the celebration of 75 years, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav.
ah
Professor M.R. Doreswamy founded the People's Education Society in 1972, and what started in a small way with 40 students in a rented gymnasium has grown to be an educational empire today with over 25,000 students and 2,500 faculty members spread across 4 different campuses. Dr. M.R. Doreswamy is presently the advisor on higher educational reforms to the government of Karnataka. He's also the Chancellor of Pierce University. Amongst the more memorable things that Professor Doreswamy sir has done, he has adopted more than 40 government schools in various parts of Bangalore as a social commitment from PS, constructed 11 government schools and 1 Anganwadi which were completely destroyed by rains and floods in the districts of Chikkodi and Bagalkot. And all these schools were symbolically handed over to the Honorable Chief Minister Shri Basavaraj Bommai in a ceremony organized at his official residence. He has made 18 recommendations to the government on various aspects of education. It's our pleasure to invite Dr. M.R. Doreswamy sir to kindly address us all.
Dr. Jaishankar, External Affairs Minister, Surya Prasad, the Vice Chancellor of PS, Mr. Ajay Kumar, Mr. Sridhar, our esteemed BOG members of PS University, faculty members of the PS University, and dear students. Perhaps today is one of very rare day that the PS University has. Our External Affairs Minister, first time the presidents have come, vice presidents have come. The first time our External Affairs Minister is coming to our campus. All of us, we are very familiar. The External Affairs, among all the cabinet ministers that we have, holds a very, very important position. That is proved in the history of India, 1946 onwards, if you go through. The first, our External Affairs Minister is none other than Jawaharlal Nehru. That is the important, that only shows the importance. He was there for a very long time. Jawaharlal Nehru was there for a very long time as an External Affairs Minister. From that day onwards, it was held by very, very distinguished, illustrious sons of India, including Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and the latest comes our Srimati Sushma Swaraj. You can see galaxy of people who hold this very important position. First time again in the Indian history, being an official all along, serve in the external affairs, one of the topmost beloved, respected Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi ji, selected our guest as an External Affairs Minister. No other testimonials are required other than a Prime Minister elevating him to this position. And now he has proved beyond doubt that we have dynamic, very efficient, well-informed, who can uphold the dignity, decorum of this, our motherland, that is India. Let us give him a big hand for the wonderful things that he has done. I am a keen student of political science in India, and I am observing his contribution to as an external affairs minister, not only external affairs minister, but as a member of the Narendra Modi ji cabinet. Perhaps they have seen him now in our campus, interacting with our students to start with. I was just an observer all along. The keen interest that he has shown in every project explained by our students, what it indicates. I was just observing him. He never took it anything casual. No. He was getting into the insight of it, trying to understand them, trying to understand the project which they are explaining. Sir, that itself indication, it is a clear indication. His commitment to this great nation of India. And the interest that he has in youngsters, that is very important. I will not take much of your time or his time. You know, already there is a bit late, but however, I am very, very happy today that he is in midst of us. And when we invited questions from students, to my surprise, the Vice Chancellor was telling hundreds and hundreds of questions have put forth already by students. What it indicates, how much interest the youngsters have in the public. It is not, particularly in this is not a issue not connected with within the country. It is an issue connected inside the country and outside the country, and how we have to maintain our decorum, our dignity, and uphold our values. The only one incident I wanted to quote, not beyond it. 1 second. The role played by him when students were Ukraine. Thousands of students, you know, they went there to pursue their medical education. They were in great distress to reach India. The way how we handled, not even a single student is without putting inconvenience. All those students, Indian students who were there, he has taken care of everyone to reach safely India. That is one of the contributions he has made. I can go on giving a big list of it. Not required, I think, for this audience. You are quite aware about his contribution, and you are quite aware about his role that he is playing. And whoever is working under the Narendra Modi ji, because I know a bit of it, few of them very intimately, I know, very, very difficult to work under Modi ji. The simple reason, unless they are thorough in their subject, unless they always on their toes with the required efforts that they have to make. With these few words, it is with the greatest pleasure, I am extending heartiest the welcome to our chief guest today. And I know the youngsters are very, very anxious to listen. That itself is a very good indication. The external affairs student should be aware what is going on around, and what is you have to be, every Indian, particularly the youth of this country, should be aware about what is going on and what is the role played by. For one last word I wanted to say, India was not recognized a very important country if we take 25 years back. Today, entire India, most advanced countries, including USA, Russia, and other countries, they look at us, India, for our guidance. It is all because of the Narendra Modi ji and today of our guests. Thank you very much.
So thank you so much for your address. You are yourself a huge source of inspiration to all of us. Well, we have the man of the occasion who joined the Indian Foreign Service in 1977 and a diplomatic career spanning over 58 years. He's the first foreign secretary to head the Ministry of External Affairs as a cabinet minister. And apart from his professional mastery, he is well versed in 6 to 7 international languages. And last but not the least, he shuns publicity and prefers to do his work silently. That's a rare species. We'd like now to watch a small video on Dr. Subrahmanyam Jaishankar.
PES University welcomes Dr. Subrahmanyam Jaishankar, Honorable Union Minister of External Affairs, Government of India. Shri Jaishankar was born in a Tamil family in New Delhi to a prominent Indian strategic affairs analyst, commentator and civil servant K. Subrahmanyam and Sulochana Subrahmanyam. He did his schooling from the Air Force School in New Delhi and graduated in chemistry from St. Stephen's College at the University of Delhi. He has an MA in Political Science and an MPhil and PhD in International Relations from JNU, where he specialized in nuclear diplomacy. He joined the Indian Foreign Service in 1977 and his first international posting was in Moscow, Russia. He served in Sri Lanka as First Secretary and Political Advisor to the Indian Peacekeeping Forces. In 2004, Shri Jaishankar was appointed as America's Joint Secretary. In this capacity, he was involved in negotiating the US-India Civil Nuclear Agreement and improving defense cooperation. From 2007 to 2009, Shri Jaishankar served as India's High Commissioner to Singapore. During his tenure, he worked on the policies that expanded the Indian business presence in Singapore. Shri Jaishankar was India's longest-serving ambassador to China with a 4.5-year term. He was involved in improving economic, trade and cultural relations between China and India and in managing the Sino-Indian border dispute. He was appointed as Foreign Secretary in 2015 by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government. He had an excellent working relationship with former Minister of External Affairs late Sushma Swaraj. After he retired from the position of Foreign Secretary, he joined Tata Sons as President of Global Corporate Affairs. He was honored with Padma Shri, the fourth highest civilian award in 2019, for his immense contribution to the nation as a diplomat. He was elected as Member of Indian Parliament to the Rajya Sabha and was inducted into Prime Minister Modi's cabinet as Union Minister of External Affairs. Interestingly, Shri Jaishankar is the first ever former Foreign Secretary to become the Minister of External Affairs. He has also written a widely acclaimed, best-selling book, The India Way, Strategies for an Uncertain World, which was published in 2020. It is indeed a great opportunity for the students of PES University to interact with an eminent politician, seasoned diplomat and an inspiring leader like Dr. S. Jaishankar. We wholeheartedly welcome you to the event, sir.
It's our pleasure to invite Dr. Subrahmanyam Jaishankar to address us all.
Good afternoon. It's wonderful to see so many people. Chancellor Dr. Doraisamy, Vice Chancellor Dr. Surya Prasad, Professor Ajay Kumar, Dr. Sridhar, students, faculties, friends. It's really overwhelming to see so many of you here today. Let me say, really honestly, it's a great pleasure to be with all of you today. And I was actually discussing with Dr. Doraisamy that when I look at all of you and see that you are from multiple streams, you have engineers, you have people studying business, people studying law, I think even medicine. So I actually told him I'm from a very mixed up academic background, as you heard, and I always felt it actually did me some good at the end of my life, that I knew a little bit of many things. And he told me actually that's a new education policy. So obviously I did it accidentally in my youth, but it's, you know, the reason I mention it is today actually, if you hear me out, you will realize why it is important for everybody to have, apart from their own domain knowledge and expertise, a broad sense of the world, a good appreciation of what is happening in their country, and therefore an interest in many, many things. Now, obviously, you know, when I look at so many youthful people in front of me, it's naturally, you know, the feeling that comes out in me is that, you know, sense of optimism, of change, of the future of the country that I see in front of me. And my first point before I actually speak about foreign policy, because it is related to that, I want to drive home to you this message of the enormous change that is taking place in this country today. Change in every possible way, you know, change in its politics, change in its economics, change in the way in which the average citizen gets his or her due, change in the way in which we engage the world. And part of the reason actually for the change is that as a society, you know, as a country, you all know that this is 75 years of our independence. But we have moved to a phase where the leadership of the country, for the first time ever, is actually a post-independent generation. Whether you look at Prime Minister Narendra Modi, whether you look at our president, you look at our vice president, you look at the speaker of our parliament, the bulk of the ministers, the people who actually do policy formulation, or even other realms, education, civil society, business. We have people for whom the earlier era, the colonial era, is behind them. They were born as free citizens of an independent India, and the confidence of that as their starting point today actually allows them to think in much bigger and more confident terms. The second part of the change is actually our democratization. Now, you know, you would be tired by now of people telling you we are a democracy, we are the biggest democracy. Actually, we are, in my view, also the oldest democracy. But there is actually a democratization process in our life. And the democratization process is, if you look today at, again, I'm starting with the leadership of the country. These are all people from ordinary families. These are people who have worked their way up in life, who have come up with great effort on the basis of their merit and experience. But it is not only the people you look up to. I would say in any institution, I mean, even amongst you. Again, to my favorite example is actually the Indian cricket team. You know, the Indian cricket team, once upon a time, By the way, I'm diverting here a bit. You know, I spent part of my life, my early life in Bangalore. My grandparents used to live there, and we used to come home for holidays. I even did a little bit of my schooling in Bangalore. Interestingly, I told Dr. Doraisamy when I got into government and they sent us out saying, you must learn something about Indian villages. I was actually sent to Chikkodi in Belgaum district. So when you're talking about floods in Chikkodi and Bagalkot, it's an area, at least I remember from many years ago. But my Bangalore story is this. You know, the first time I ever watched serious cricket was when I was still in school. And the first serious cricketer I saw was actually a schoolboy. It was a person called Sunil Gavaskar. Sunil Gavaskar and Ramesh Nagdev used to open for West Zone school team in those days. I'm now talking of, you know, for you people it'll be history. It's like mid-60s. And I mentioned cricket team. Actually, if you look at the Indian cricket team, what was once an elite sport of Ranjit Singh ji and Dilip Singh ji and C.K. Naidu, today represents the full diversity of India. And I think that is happening in our politics, it's happening in our society, it is happening in our leadership. And this democratization of India is the second message to you which I give, because to me that is very intrinsic to the change. Now what does that mean on the ground? What it means on the ground is that our basic expectations of government, of ourselves, of society, they have gone up. That people today are no longer content to wait for basic, for minimal things in life. I mean, a tap connection, a power connection, a gas cylinder, these are not luxuries for people. It should not be. Owning a home is not something that should happen to you at the end of your life with your savings. Owning your home is something which actually every citizen of India must aspire to early in their lives. And actually not aspire to, but actually see it happen in large numbers. So to me, what is the you might say baseline for our society? That is today changing. You have a government, I would say it's not just a government, it is the societal thinking says we can do better than this, we must do better than this, we must aspire higher, we must deliver to our people better. The second is the means to do that. And a lot of that is today technology enabled. You know, when I came in, one of the reasons I was very keen to spend time with the students, they actually, it may be a small thing, they keep your thinking going, and think of really what the digital, I would say, progress of this country has done. I mean, a very large part of what I saw were AI-based applications, okay? And one at least was a drone-based one. Now, for us, 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, the idea that I would walk into a university near Bangalore and see students demonstrate drones and students tell me a range of AI apps would have been inconceivable. And that is the change in just 5 years. Now, it's not a sort of a small thing. It is not what is a low in a bubble or in a local environment it is happening. Look at some of the big achievements. And I remind you of this because we take it for granted. We take it, once something happens, the human mind immediately internalizes it so fast. It's a fact of life. Now, I'll give you an achievement. Today we perhaps don't think about it, but for the rest of the world, it's huge. The fact that there were 2 billion vaccinations done for COVID. the fact that we were one of the first countries, the fact that we were one of the first countries actually to have digital certificates. You know, I was once provoked into saying it, it didn't come out well. It looked like I was putting down somebody else. It was not my intention. But the fact is, you know, we went around the world very early, flashing your phone and saying, see, here's my QR code, here's my vaccination certificate. So I'm good, I'm ready to go. And as I said, other people were pulling out pieces of certification, paper certification from the wallets. Now, if you, and it wasn't just the CoWIN platform, and even, you know, even this 2 billion. One part of it is the scale. But imagine if it was not digitally organized. If you did not know your turn would come at this place at this time in that vaccination center. Today, it is obvious. 5 years ago, it would have been rocket science. It actually would have been science fiction. So, and even the vaccine itself, you know, there was a time when, yes, something new came in the global market. You know, finally, after 5 years, 10 years, it would have reached India. We were vaccinating along with the rest of the world. We were vaccinating a invented in India vaccine, as well as a made in India vaccine. And even that made in India vaccine was made by a company which during this entire period probably was the #1 vaccine producer by any standards in the world. So this is also part of the change which all of you today are seeing at the, you know, as you are on the threshold of your work life. And I am sort of spending some time with you emphasizing this because you have to understand that the world is watching us. When I go out in the world, you know, we have our domestic debates, there would be differences, there'd be arguments, all of that happens. People who look at us from a distance, they look at the vaccination. They look, you know, for them, I mean, Bangalore itself is a legend. Okay, I mean, Bangalore, we tell people that you're from Bangalore, it's like already you are like uplifted a few inches above normal human beings. Huh? So the sense today that India is a country on the move, that the talents and skills and the capabilities of India, this has a huge meaning for the world. The second is our own traditional image. The traditional image was we were struggling. We had serious challenges of poverty, challenges of development, challenges of malnutrition, challenges of homelessness. Now today, the world is seeing that all these are being addressed. That if you look at the, you know, as I said, the tap water connections, the power connections, the urbanization, the housing, and even during COVID, you know, even now when I tell people that the Modi government fed and continues to feed through rations 800 million people, they do not, I mean, the number just staggers them. If you tell them we put money into 400 million accounts, month after month, you know, it's a number. I mean, 800 million is Europe and North America put together. You know, 400 million is almost the size of the European Union. These numbers, this scale, a government, a society, a people, and a talent which can do this, this is actually today a very, very different India in the making. And that, in many ways, is the message that I take out to the rest of the world. You know, some weeks ago, I was traveling in India, in some other state, I will not mention the name, and a chief minister of that state actually said, you know, what is the foreign minister of India doing in this state? You know, we should be doing foreign policy. Huh? You know why I travel out? Why am I in Bangalore? Why is it for me so interesting to spend time with you? Because for me, this experience of coming out, of mixing, of being immersed in our own society, of seeing the changes for myself. The young people with whom I saw these startups, for me, somewhere they will fit into a conversation I will have somewhere in the world. I will actually be telling some other foreign minister or some other prime minister or some other government saying, you know, I actually saw my students in this university looking at how to use drones for better agriculture production. Or, you know, a lot of it, physiotherapy, you know, some of the AI applications that I saw today. So one part of it is, of course, for me, the immersion tells me, it continuously validates for me that huge churning, that sense of change which is going on in the country. Second, of course, your enthusiasm communicates to me. So every time I come to a place like this, you know, for me, it's like recharging your batteries. I go out there much more convinced, much more enthusiastic, much more confident about our own capabilities. Now, why am I telling you all of this? I am telling you this because I saw a lot of very interesting, very thoughtful questions about foreign policy. I appreciate them deeply. I want to give you 2-3 basics of what we do, because that is it's around those basic objectives that we organize ourselves. And some of those basics have changed, you know. Some of them are perennial, they are permanent. I mean, obviously foreign policy is meant to secure your country. So you try to have good relations with everybody, and just in case things don't work out well, you also have insurance policy with having good relations with other people with whom you have good understandings, or you can get military equipment or technology, or you can get political friendships which serve you well in time of difficulty. So the security part of it has always been there. It is there for every country and will always be so. The part, and obviously every country, every society likes to project itself. You know, you want brand India to be known through the world. But the part which has changed, and has changed particularly in the last 8 years. One, foreign policy today is very focused on how do I use the world to drive my national development faster. How do I get capital? How do I get technology? How do I get best practices? How do I find ways by which my country moves up the ladder, progresses very much faster than it would do otherwise. The second, of course, is foreign policy is about knowing the world and, in a sense, doing a risk assessment. Because if your foreign policy and your risk assessments go wrong, then you're actually putting your country, your society at risk, in danger. And there have been times for us. I mean, the fact was that the events before 1962 led to a war in 62, out of which India came out very, very badly. In 1965, again, there were issues. We came out of it much better. Again, when 1971 and 1999 happened, our leaderships were much stronger. So today, to assess the world, to read the world, to look at both the opportunities and the challenges it offers, that is something which is very, very important. But the third part of it is really in a globalized world. How does foreign policy make your life better? And I'll give you 2 or 3 examples. Today, every one of us is affected by the price of petrol at the petrol pump. Now, one way of keeping that in some control is actually foreign policy. The fact that we have the ability, the confidence, the strength of purpose to negotiate what is in the best interest of the country, and it is in the best interest of the Indian people, is something which is clearly an outcome of foreign policy. Let me give you a second example. It is an example I think Dr. Doraisamy also mentioned. you have conflict situation. It happened in Ukraine with our students. It happened in Afghanistan, where we had both our own people as well as, minority communities there who identified with us. It has happened in a number of other places. It happened even during COVID, where so many really lakhs of Indians were stranded outside the country. So foreign policy here is to use your relationships to look after your people, to bring your people back. The one message which I heard from everybody coming out of Ukraine was, if we carried the Indian flag, we were okay. Now, that to me is foreign policy. A third was COVID itself. We won friends, we won hearts by sharing what we had in terms of medicine and vaccines. But I must in all fairness recognize, during 2021 summer, when the Delta wave was on, the world also stood by us. That the number of countries who actually flew in, if I saw what US did or Europe did or in fact, what the Japanese did, a lot of them really also, it was, you could say, goodwill, accumulated goodwill over many years. But sometimes it could be something very specific. There was a huge demand for oxygen at that time. Every state, every hospital was pushing for oxygen. And our big problem was where we produced oxygen, which are generally in the remote areas of the country, not where we consumed oxygen. So oxygen itself was in short supply, medical oxygen, and supplying it within, distributing it within our country was a huge problem. And we actually got oxygen shipped from a number of countries, actually using diplomacy. So it could have been a Qatar and a Kuwait or a Singapore, or a Japan. A lot of these countries again, and sometimes even big businesses actually offer to ship us. So today, what happens in the world? A distant event in Ukraine is raising fuel and food prices. A happening like the COVID, which we never anticipated, came home to each one of us. Anything we use in daily life today, some part of it may be made in India, but somewhere some of it is coming from outside. So we are getting very deeply connected to the world. Because we are so deeply connected to the world, we must understand the world, we must read it right. If we read it right, the world opens up for us. I've spoken about trade. One of the areas which Prime Minister Modi is pushing very hard is to make sure that actually the world opens up for us as a workplace, that our talent, our skills, our corporates are able to go out in the rest of the world and work on equal terms with the citizens of those countries. So one of our big focus today is actually mobility agreements and work opportunities for our students and for our interns abroad. So the sense I wish to share with you in my overall remarks was, this is a globalized era. The world matters to us. Whatever you study, whichever domain you are in, it matters much more than when we were your age. And if we understand the world well, many more opportunities open up for us. If we do not understand the world, actually there are many dangers out there which could threaten our well-being. So I would urge you all, whatever you are studying, pay attention. Somewhere in your lives, keep looking at the world, give some attention to what is happening. And see how that also fits in with the changes that are taking place in our own society. Because today, the vision that we have, the leadership that we have, the ambitions that we have, these are very different. I'm not suggesting to you that the world is without its challenges. In fact, between COVID and the Ukraine conflict and a lot of other uncertainties, it's a tough place. But it is a tough place that we in India face with confidence, because we have that leadership today, that experience today, that sense that, the decisions which this country are making are the right decisions, are the decisions of experience, the decisions of prudence, but still decisions of ambition and of optimism. So that is the sense I wanted to communicate. Really, it's again such a pleasure to be with all of you today, and then perhaps we could move to the question session. Thank you very much.
So thank you so much. Quoting yourself, it's better to engage with the world on the basis of who we are, rather than try to please the world as a pale imitation of who they are. The idea that others define us and we need their approval is an error that we need to put behind us. So you've brought in a rare sense of self-belief. This leadership has brought in a new type of belief in our own systems, our own culture, our way of thinking. We owe it to you. So thank you so much for your address. Now we have a host of questions coming your way. We'd like you to answer them. The first of the questions, I'll start the rolling of the ball. Dear sir, which is the most challenging and tough country you've worked in as a diplomat?
Actually, to be very honest, this question provokes me to give some unsolicited lifestyle advice. And the lifestyle advice is this. When you enjoy doing something, actually you don't think of it as tough and challenging. It becomes like it becomes like a passion. And why I say this was, among the startups I saw something which resonated with me, which was, I saw one which they said it's to kind of help less inspired students to pay more attention. And I would say, when I switched streams and I went into political science. And I went into political science because I liked politics. I liked reading about politics. I was studying science, but I used to go to the library and borrow books which related to other people's subjects and not to my own. And once I actually had a sense that this is my curriculum, and this curriculum is something I like. And I was prepared to read my curriculum on my own time, even without a teacher, because I enjoyed reading it. I'm telling you, my life changed. You actually started the idea that this is work as opposed to enjoyment or, pleasure or whatever you can call it. So the same thing happened to me as ambassador, that to me, every country you're going out to was like, you are raring to go. You're saying, okay, I'm going to hit this place, I'm going to master it, I'll learn the language, I'll get to understand what these people are about, I'll get into their mindset. So you throw yourself, you immerse yourself into it, and the moment you do that, it's amazing how much, in a sense, it grows on you. So I would really find it hard to use those words, tough and challenging, but there were places. I went through 2.5 years in Sri Lanka with our peacekeeping forces, and at that time, there was a, you can say, in a way, a conflict on, and there were people who were getting killed on our side. I went through some real challenges in China, because we had both
political differences and there were situations on the boundary at times. But overall, I would say an enthusiastic person kind of tends to look at life not as tough and challenging, but really as experience and in a way as a kind of enjoyment.
Okay, the second question from Tushar.
Respected sir, I'm Tushar, pursuing BBA in the final year. My question to you is, in regards with the semiconductor industry, the ecosystem that the government of India is trying to implement in accordance with the Quad, let's say in respect with the supply chain, the planning areas, how much will that be impacted once the US, after the US passes the CHIPS Act to gain better position over China in manufacturing local chips, the semiconductor chips, sir?
You know, I'm not sure I would quite see it the way your question puts it for this reason. Look, we today our two biggest imports are actually oil and semiconductors, chips. Okay, electronic imports, not chips. Okay, electronic imports and energy imports are our two biggest imports. So I ask all of you, I mean, we are today at the IT capital of this country. Is it right, 75 years after independence, that we should be dependent on the world to this extent for electronic imports? And if your answer is no, this is not the way it should be, then obviously we need to do something about it. And if we're going to do something about it, then we need to have the capacity to produce chips of various specifications ourselves. Now, it is a challenge which has been staring us in the face. It's not something new. I mean, nothing I'm saying was unknown to policymakers before. It is that today, you know, the Prime Minister believes that a challenge of this magnitude must not be left unresponded to, that we need to do something about it, and therefore we actually have the semiconductor mission. Now, your observation that, you know, would it be impacted by what the Americans do? You know, my sense is autonomous of what the Americans do. Our demand is our demand, and our responsibility is our responsibility. So the Americans may have done this in response to a global situation where they feel they're dependent on some other countries for chips. But the same logic applies even more to us. So to my mind, actually what the Americans are doing should serve as an inspiration, not as a distraction. I mean, to me it should strengthen my resolve, actually, to be much more self-sufficient. I mean, you know, you cannot be Atmanirbhar in a modern digital age without Atmanirbharta when it comes to semiconductors. So that's, I mean, to me it's a very, very fundamental commitment that we have.
Thank you, sir. The next question, Ananya P. Rao.
Respected sir, I'm Ananya Rao from the Department of Law, and my question to you is, given the context of India abstaining repeatedly from voting in the UN resolutions around the Russia-Ukraine conflict, what will India's position be in the same forum if China decides to invade Taiwan, given our long-standing border issues with China and their claims on Indian territory?
Well, look, do sit down. You know, I really do not see any connection between those issues. And in fact, I would suggest that the connection is being made in order to influence us. So I want you to look, just consider your own argument for a moment. Our boundary differences with China actually started in the 1950s. Okay? So if something has been going on for 70 years and something happened 5 months ago, please tell me how what happened 5 months ago is going to influence what's been going on for 70 years. You know, at the moment what is happening is, it is natural, given the very polarized global situation, that different countries, different parties try to influence us to take positions. To do that, they advance arguments which they hope will appeal to us. So in some way, they will stretch it, and try to bring it around as though our interests are endangered in some form. So when you hear such arguments, do, in a sense, think through the plausibility of it, that is that really the case? I mean, hypothetically, let me ask you, suppose this Ukraine conflict did not happen in February of this year. Did our problems in Ladakh in 2020, would they have not happened? You know, are my problems any worse or any better at the line of actual control because Ukraine happened or because Ukraine did not happen? So where is the connection between the two? So the idea somehow that something happens in one corner and that is an example for somebody else to do. Life is not so sort of extrapolative, from one situation to the other. Secondly, you used you mentioned that we took a certain position in regard to this conflict. Why did we take that position? You know, it's not that we are oblivious to our interests. On the contrary, our interests required us to take those positions. Because the fact is, we have our own history. I'm talking now as India. We have our history and our experiences with Russia. Okay. We have our strategic view of the world. You know, what does, if country A is closer to country B, what does it mean to us? If it moves towards country C, what does it mean to us? So the strategic assessment and logic is ours. The experience and history is ours. The interests are ours. You know, what do we, ultimately, I have to also calculate. What is the gain? What is the loss? What is the risk? What is the benefit that I would have? So it is the combination of those calculations, the metrics, which is made out of that. That is what has led me to take a certain position. And that is what has led others to come up with arguments to try and influence my position. And I am sorry, I will be driven on this by my interest, my experience, my thinking, and I will not allow other people's mind games to take me off my course.
Thank you, sir. That literally defines the new India we're talking about. Question number 4.
Respected sir, I'm Abhilash from MBA department. My question to you, sir, the Ministry of External Affairs floats internship opportunities to many worthy candidates. What skill does it take to get into this program, sir?
Are you interested?
Yes, sir.
I'll certainly take a look at it. No, look, we would take it on the basis of advertisements and then look at the applicants and obviously make our choices. What we have done from this year, we have actually made it into a much more systematic exercise where we have made it more national. We have factored in various criteria, gender criteria, social criteria, geographical, regional criteria, because we want to get a much more representative, set of interns. But quite honestly, it was not a facetious reply. I think when you are through with your education, if it is something which interests you, I would actually encourage you to apply, because I would, I would say for me, as someone interested, I'm not saying this as a minister or as a former diplomat, the more people, more young people in India who have hands-on experience with foreign policy, with a sense of how decisions are made, how choices are evaluated, it's good for us, it's good for them. They go out into the world with a much stronger resume that they've actually participated or got a sense of how that is done. So I hope to see you in your next life.
Definitely, sir.
Thank you, sir. The next question, question number 5. Yeah, it's there. Yeah.
Hello. Good evening, sir. I'm Naveen from BCom department. My question to you is, American nationalism, rise of China, saga of Brexit, and rebalancing of global economy are often cited as more dramatic examples of change. This was a statement made by you in one of your speeches. Can you explain how these dramatic changes has impacted India?
One of the problems of making speeches is people quote you back. So, since you have done so, let me respond. I think each one of these actually has redefined our calculus. What American nationalism has done, in a way, and it's not only nationalism, it is also a sense in America that its resources and its capabilities are not as extensive as they used to be before. So what it has done today is it has made America much more open to working with other countries with whom its interests are similar. And part of the reason why something like the Quad has happened, part of the reason why India-US relations has grown so extensively, is precisely that sense that today this very different America is much more open to partnerships. Where rise of China is concerned, I think that's in a sense even more profound, because the last time actually a potential superpower arose, that was the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union, and in a sense the United States, in a very short time frame with the Second World War as a cover. Today you are seeing the rise of a potential superpower without a conflict, which is very rare in history. And this superpower is actually our neighbor, okay? So when a superpower, a potential superpower rises, the neighborhood feels the impact most of all. And then there will be an area which is their periphery and our periphery, and it intersects. So there, that sense of, can you reconcile, harmonize your interests or not? That is a natural question that arises. And if that power also has a different, I would say, DNA, a political social DNA is different, then it's a even more complex issue. On top of that, I mean, I mentioned Brexit because what Brexit has done, what Brexit did actually, was to shake up a very complacent Europe. And it actually also introduced a bit of a wild card in the equation, which was a UK, which was out of the EU. And when I say rebalancing, what rebalancing means is, if you make a list, say, of the top 30 economies of the world, you look at them 1950, 1960, 1970, every decade, you will see actually how that list changes. You will see how many less European economies are there, how many more non-European, especially Asian economies are there, and how much actually India, amongst others, China also as well, has gone up in that. And that has today changed the distribution of power in the world. So if there's any big issue today, you can't settle a big issue today without India. And part of it, it's not always a given. If you have a strong Indian leadership, for sure you cannot settle that issue without India. So these combinations actually make, to my mind, for a very different world. It is a world where India will have to be more active. It is a world where it is a situation also where the world will want India to be more active. People have expectations of us. So that's in a sense that kind of era which I was urging all of you to prepare for.
Thank you, sir.
Check.
Question number 6.
Respected sir, I am Vasishta from the Department of Law. There is much debate about the necklace of diamond strategy. So my question is, what will be the repercussions with respect to the current situation of China and Taiwan?
Could you walk me through that again?
Yes,
Because I heard of the string of pearls, the necklace of diamonds.
Yes, sir. The
string of the same. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you
necklace
must
of
be
diamonds.
you must be higher income group. Pearls are more middle class. Look, if you are actually instead of using these jewelry euphemisms, come down to brass tacks. If we are talking actually of a larger Chinese presence offshore, including in the Indian Ocean, I think it is something which India has to evaluate and assess, including for the implications that it has for our own security. Because historically, we have always thought of China as a country to the north of us. We've never actually had a Chinese presence to the south of us. So that is obviously a situation which somebody like me or other people who work with me, keep evaluating and keep monitoring. But that goes to the question which I answered earlier, which is, when you have a power which is beyond a regional power, which is on its way towards becoming a global power, then there could be very unsettling changes, and these are changes which our country will have to prepare for. And wherever our interests are involved, I think it is very important that we are very clear and very firm on defending our interests.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you, sir. I have a question of my own once more. Will the probable recession in America affect the employment opportunities in India in the near future? If yes, then what steps we as future graduates, I'm representing the graduates, adapt to cope up with the same?
The economic, shall I say, economic direction is not as clear and strong and negative as your question would suggest. And the Americans' jobs numbers were not so bad, the ones which have just come in. In fact, they exceeded market expectations, if my memory serves me right. So, this is again part of this world, the global workplace that we have to prepare for, which is, I think, people in India, skills and talents in India, have to take into account our own economy, others, neighboring economies, global economies, look at the volatility, assess their prospects, and the more globalized we become, we are going to have to factor it more and more. But there is no question that the global economy, at least in the short term, is going to be very volatile. Now, whether that volatility actually translates into a recession and the kind of recession, I think at this moment we'll have to wait and see.
Thank you, sir. Question number 8. There we have Amog.
Respected sir, I'm Amog from final year BBA. My question is, what will be India's stance on taking any action about the Taiwan, US and China conflict? And also, what are your views on security of Indo-Pacific belt?
You know, you've raised what is a delicate and ongoing situation. So at this moment, I don't want to jump the gun, but I think since you have an interest in the subject, I'm quite sure that you will get authoritative pronouncement of our views from the spokesperson of the MEA. On the Indo-Pacific belt, you know, what has happened with the Indo-Pacific is that we have today very extensive interests in the Indo-Pacific. More than half our economic engagement is east of India. Okay, that's a very big change. Secondly, I refer again to that earlier question about, you know, US, the change in US and what are the other geopolitical changes. That era when we could expect other countries to take care of the global commons and say, okay, we go about our business, but, you know, the policing bit somebody will do. Somebody will ensure there's no piracy. Somebody will ensure if there's a tsunami that it will be taken care of. That era is gone now. We have gone much more into a kind of a, I would say, a neighborhood watch and a contributors culture. I think today, if you look at the challenges of the Indo-Pacific, they don't have to be security challenges. They could be ecological, environmental challenges. There could be connectivity challenges. There could be natural disaster challenges. I think it's important for willing countries to come forward, work with each other. We are doing that in different ways. We have this Quad mechanism going. We have also suggested there's something called the Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative that we tabled, Prime Minister tabled in 2019. This is a way of working with ASEAN countries and beyond ASEAN countries. So it has to be a much more contributive, collective effort really to address the problem. No country today is in a position, has either the capacity or the willingness to actually shoulder this burden.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Question number 9.
Good evening, sir. I'm Angela Sakshi from first year psychology. Sir, my question to you. Bangladesh has reaffirmed its support for one China policy. What is your take on it?
No, look, Bangladesh is a sovereign country. I mean, they have their interests and their outlook, and, you know, they will do what is in their interest according to the best of their judgment. So what I do want to say is our own relations with Bangladesh are very special. They go back to the origin of Bangladesh. They have not always been as good as they are today. There have in the past been problems in our relationship with Bangladesh. But if I were to look at Prime Minister Modi's 8 years of government and say, if somebody says, okay, pick for me top 5 achievements or even top 3 achievements in foreign policy, I would say the land boundary agreement that we did with Bangladesh, the enormous benefit it has brought us in terms of stabilizing the boundary, in creating connectivity, in putting an end to terrorism and law and order situations in the Northeast. It has beginning to transform the Northeast. For us, Bangladesh is a very, very valuable partner, and we clearly are very deeply committed to fostering that relationship.
Thank you, sir. Question number 10.
Respected sir, India is known for its rich education system with flourished institutions such as Nalanda University. Yet, we see a lot of students, a lot of Indian students looking for admissions in US colleges. or more of abroad colleges. What is your take on this?
Well, I think my take would not be different from yours. I just don't think our educational capacities have expanded along with either our economic development or our demographic change. You know, if you take any parameter, number of engineering colleges, medical colleges, just colleges, you know, we should have really grown them massively as actually our economy grew. The fact is we didn't. You know, now one of the priorities of this government is therefore actually to scale up the tertiary education sector. And if you look already in these 8 years, and you know, it's important, there are two aspects of it. One is that obviously what the government itself should do in terms of institutions it creates. The second is the government creates the enabling environment for private educational institutions to grow. And to my mind, you know, the solution, look, who would want to go abroad with all the language difficulty? I mean, we had 20,000 students in Ukraine, okay? Just imagine for a moment. Now, surely they must have thought 5 times before they actually went to Ukraine. Now, the answer is if we had enough of a educational expansion in India, that perhaps would not have happened to the same degree. So I think today growing our educational institutions is a very big priority, and I know that this is very, very high in the government's objectives and the new NEP's goals.
Thank you, sir.
So I'm informed that the Honorable Minister has to be leaving in another 10 minutes' time. We will take another 2 questions and call it a day. Let's go to the next question. Question number 12. Yeah.
Good evening, sir. I'm Kshitij Saha. I'm a third-year engineering student pursuing computer science. So my question is with regard to the United Nations. India is currently serving its 8th non-consecutive term in the United Nations Security Council. It has presided over the SC in August, will do so again in December of this year. And India has also been bidding for a permanent seat at the table. So my question to you, sir, is that realistically possible? Is it possible to expect worthwhile change in the power structure of the UNSC in the coming years? Or is that still a pipe dream because of our neighbors up north?
You know, getting into as a permanent member of the UN Security Council is a very big deal. Okay. Precisely because it's a very big deal, it will not happen easily. Because the world is, in reality, not a particularly generous place. You know, countries have to struggle for what they get. And the current structure, you know, was formed in 1945. It reflected a kind of outcome of the Second World War. The 5 winners of the Second World War, in a way, are the current non-permanent members. Now, since then, in the 77 years that have passed, the fact is the world has changed dramatically. You know, you have, I mean, at that time, when the actual members of the UN have gone up fourfold, there are large parts of the world which are not represented. Very soon, you will have a situation where the most populous country in the world is not in the Security Council, where the 3rd largest economy of the world is not in the Security Council. So I then ask you this question, how credible does that make the Security Council? Because it is natural that if 5 other guys, if 5 countries are taking decisions and, you know, big countries are not involved, big continents are not involved, a lot of it is the entire global south is not involved. You know, to my mind, we would hope that among the UN itself, because there is a very widespread feeling, and I'm not saying it out of self-interest. I mean, we are today the acceptability, the India's case to join is very widely recognized. If there is actually a free and fair vote in the UN membership, I have no doubt that, you know, we will get a very high degree of support. But there are very deep vested interests. So the countries, at least some of the countries who are there, no prizes for guessing who they are. You know, the countries who are there, some of them have an interest in not allowing this. They are hanging on to it. Some of it is for what it means for themselves. I don't know. I have no reason. I mean, I do not know whether they have any views about us. But the fact is they're not helping the process. But because it is hard, because, to use your words, you know, sometimes even pipe dreams must be chased, because only then those dreams become a reality. Because it is difficult, that is no reason for me to give up. I mean, a lot of things in life are difficult. Our national struggle was difficult. So we soldier on.
So a small change in strategy. We'll try to take 3 students' questions and together, one after another. Question number 12. They'll be followed by 13 and 14. So the mic can go to 13 next and 14 after that. All the 3 questions, sir, will take one after another. Yeah.
Respected sir, I'm Atulya from MBA department. My question for you is, India's external debt rose to 620.7 billion in the financial year 2022. What is the government doing in order to address this issue?
Okay, question number 13. 13, yeah, it's there.
Respected sir, I'm Aditi from a student of MBA department, and my question to you, sir, is Iran has recently applied along with Argentina to be a part of BRICS. So, do you think this will be an important step to solve major international issues?
Okay, question number 14. Purna Chandra. Yeah.
Good evening, sir. I'm Purna Chandra from the Department of BBA Honors in Business Analytics. And my question to you, sir, is how do you justify India's stand of neutral policy on Russia and Ukraine conflict in spite of the fact that Russia had invaded a sovereign country besides a crime on humanity?
You know, I've answered that question in a way, so I'll take one more question. I'll take one more. Yeah.
Sir, will this be the last question you'll take? Yeah. Okay, in that case, I will ask the question. So I could never find a YouTube video titled A Day in the Life of the Minister of External Affairs. Okay. Can we all hear it from you, what your everyday life is?
Okay. The issue of external debt. Look, I mean, I'm not a finance person, but as a member of the cabinet and as a person with a general sense of our economy, I think today the perception in India and in the world is actually we have been very, very prudent in our borrowings. In fact, coming out post-COVID, many countries actually were fiscally far more profligate in the way in which they address the COVID challenges. So I don't see, I mean, this is a time when a lot of economies are under stress. These are generally relatively smaller economies and mostly developing country economies. I think the sense at least is that India's finances are in a very, very sound position. So I don't think there is any cause for concern. On the BRICS question, you know, there has been some very tentative discussion about expanding BRICS, but when you take any body like this, it's not something which is done on a whim, or you know, people have ideas and say, what about this? It's a very deliberative process. Usually it is very carefully studied. You know, interested parties are evaluated. So at this time, I would actually not identify any particular country as saying, okay, these people are going to be members or those people are not going to be members. I don't think BRICS is anywhere near that position. I think BRICS is not even considered how this membership expansion should be considered at all. And the Ukraine question, you know, in a sense, I had answered it, you know, when a similar question was asked out there. And I realized I had made a mistake giving you the last shot about, you know, look, the reason you don't get a day in the life of a minister is you really don't want to know. Because it's actually, it's a pretty, I would say, at one level, a very demanding, grueling sort of exercise. But again, at one level, I mean, I went back to that, you know, if you like it, if you throw yourself into it, if you are enthusiastic about it, you go through it with a great deal of enthusiasm and sort of, I would say, almost satisfaction. But now that you've given me an idea, if you do see a YouTube coming out, you know where the idea came.
All good things have to come to an end. We would like to go with this on and on. It's absolutely engrossing listening to a diplomat par excellence, a great communicator. Sir, thank you so much. It has been engrossing listening to you. It's my pleasure to request the Registrar of PS University, Dr. K.S. Sridhar, to kindly propose the vote of thanks for today's function. After this, we will conclude with the national anthem.
A very good evening to one and all assembled here. It's an event with a difference, I would say, because we have had so many events across genres, but the event that we had today made a huge difference. We had the good fortune and the privilege to have Dr. Jaishankar, the Honorable Minister for External Affairs, Government of India. I think we were fortunate enough to have him amidst us today, and it was an engrossing session. We didn't know how time just fled in the last almost 120 minutes. Sir, your presence today has made a huge difference to all of us here. It was a wonderful learning experience. The questions were asked by a host of our students, though they were filtered and put across. You answered all the questions with utmost patience, calm, and poise. Thank you so much, sir, for your kind presence today. I request our Honorable Chancellor, Dr. Doraiswamy, to felicitate Dr. Jaishankar. He is the youngest man on PS campuses. I am referring to none other than our Honorable Chancellor, Dr. M.R. Doraiswamy. a man with a vision who has built an empire today and is the father figure of all of us at PES institutions. Sir, many, many thanks for your warm presence today. We truly appreciate the interest that you evince in all activities of PES. We are fortunate enough to be working under you. Thank you very much, sir. I take this opportunity to extend my heartfelt thanks to Dr. J. Surya Prasad, the Vice Chancellor of PES University, for all the encouragement he gives to all activities on campus. It's indeed a pleasure for me being his colleague and interacting with him on a day-to-day basis. Thank you very much, sir, for your kind presence. We have another man on the stage who's very rarely and occasionally seen, Professor Ajoy Kumar, the Chief Operating Officer of PES Institutions. All the murals that you see at the entrance of PES Institutions and everything that happens across the campuses of PES is the brainchild of Professor Ajoy Kumar. Thank you very much, sir, for your kind presence today. We wish to express our heartfelt gratitude to the Minister of Higher Education, Shri Ashwath Narayan Ji, and all the state functionaries of Bharatiya Janata Party for selecting PES University to host this event, without whose help this wouldn't have happened today. I recognize and thank the presence of our Honorable Board of Governor members, Academic Council, Executive Council, and the Research Council of PES University. I take this opportunity to thank the principals and heads of institutions of all other PES institutions located in Bangalore and in Kuppam and Chittoor for facilitating the students to witness this event at their respective institutions. I take this opportunity to extend my heartfelt thanks to all the deans and chairpersons of PES institutions for their support, without which this wouldn't have been possible today. I thank and recognize the presence of Shri Kantaraj, Shri Dasharath, Shri Sachidananda, and Shri Deepak Mayasandra from the BJP, whose help has immensely proved to be very, very fruitful today for us. I thank the Bangalore City Police for helping us to maintain law and order as far as this event is concerned. The press and media have always been very, very encouraging and very supportive of all the activities of PES and bringing it to the fore. Thank you, the members of the press and the electronic media. I take this opportunity to thank the assistant staff and the IT team of PES for making necessary arrangements for the live streaming. All others who directly or indirectly helped us in arranging this event today. Above all, the students who have assembled here, you have been a wonderful audience. A huge thanks to all of you for maintaining the discipline. Appreciate your patience throughout the event. Thank you all very, very much. Have a wonderful evening, a wonderful weekend, and happy Independence Day to all of you here. Thank you. I request all of you to please rise for the national anthem.
Yeah, we can have the national anthem.
अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
जय। a small omission from my end. I would like to thank Dr. V. Krishna for steering this program.
Students, please be seated. All of you be seated. Please seated.
Till the guest leaves the hall, please be seated. Please.